How's it going, everyone? It's Harvey from Weather Sponge 1000, and in this video we're going to talk about the Atlantic hurricane season, more specifically the month of August, and if we will see a more active August when it comes to tropical cyclone development, or a less active August for the 2022 hurricane season. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather content. So the first thing we need to take a look at, of course, is the sea surface temperature anomaly for the northern Atlantic. And as you can see, there is some good news, because if we were to take a look at the main developed region, the sea surface temperatures are still cooler than average, which means that there's less likely to be convection in this area, since in the areas where the sea surface temperatures are cooler than average, you're bound to experience more stable and sinking air, because it's pretty much the only area where the air molecules aren't really moving at a very fast rate to where they could rise very rapidly, and the air is a lot more dense where the temperatures are cooler, which is over the cooler than average sea surface temperatures at this time. However, there are also other areas we're going to need to pay close attention to. Of course, the Gulf of Mexico and much of the Western Atlantic is still experiencing sea surface temperatures warmer than average. So while the main developed region is experiencing sea surface temperatures right now cooler than average, and I'd say it's likely to stay that way for the rest of August, the Western Atlantic is a complete opposite at this point, where we do see sea surface temperatures warmer than average in this area. So in general, even though the Western Atlantic is experiencing sea surface temperatures warmer than average, during the month of August, most tropical cyclones, especially the more strong ones, develop in the main developed region. So the fact that we're seeing cooler than average sea surface temperatures in the main developed region could mean that we could be in for a more quiet August. But of course, we need to take a look at several different factors before we could jump to that conclusion. However, despite the cooler than average sea surface temperatures in the main developed region, we have to keep in mind the warmer than average sea surface temperatures around the Western Atlantic. So it's more likely we're going to see more tropical cyclones develop in the Western Atlantic rather than in the main developed region and approaching the Caribbean, which is definitely something to keep in mind. And it's a little bit more concerning, because of course, where the warmer than average sea surface temperatures are located, they're pretty much right around where the United States, and pretty much right around where a lot of Central and Northern America is. So you guys could be more exposed to tropical cyclones if we were to see more tropical cyclones develop in the Western Atlantic, which is a little bit more likely with these very warm sea surface temperatures we're seeing now. Another factor we're going to need to take a look at is what the climatology models are saying, like the CFS model for the month of August. So there's a precipitation anomaly expected from the CFS for the month of August, and again, there's great news, because if we were to take a look at the main developed region, again, we still see that that during the month of August, we're expecting a little bit less precipitation than average in the main developed region as a result of potentially the Saharan dust layer that's over the main developed region at this time, and just the enhanced amount of stable air that's over the this area at this time. And the CFS model expects that to continue, and even the more short-term forecast model, such as the GFS model, is expecting the main development region to stay very quiet over the next 2 weeks or so. So that's definitely good news that as of right now, it seems like the main development region is expected to be quieter for the month of August. However, we still do see that close to the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico, we're seeing a little bit more precipitation than average, which could mean that if a tropical cyclone were to form, it'll more likely develop in the Caribbean, which sort of goes in line with what we're seeing when it comes to the sea surface temperatures around the Western Atlantic at this time, where they're warmer than average compared to the main developed region, where the sea surface temperatures are cooler than average. So again, we could see a more likely scenario where the Western Atlantic will be a little bit more active, which might be worse than if the main developed region was a little bit more active, because if the Western Atlantic is a little bit more active when it comes to tropical cyclone development, then it's more likely that more tropical cyclones would impact land, because of course the Western Atlantic has very close proximity to the United States and Central America as well as the Caribbean compared to the main developed region, where there's still a lot of time for tropical cyclone to move out to sea before coming close to the Caribbean or even the United States. So that could be a little bit of concern that the Western Atlantic could be a little bit more active. But generally speaking, if the main developed region is expected to be less active, then overall we could see a more quiet August than we typically see, which would definitely be great news since it's one of the more active months of the hurricane season. But we still need to pay close attention to the month of September because that is the most active month of the hurricane season. So I just want to emphasize, even if this August is expected to be quiet when it comes to tropical cyclone development, we still could see the hurricane season get very active once we approach September, as we've seen hurricane seasons that had extremely quiet August get very active once they approach the month of September. So don't underestimate the rest of the hurricane season just because this month is active, because we still could see the hurricane season get more active during the month of September and October. But we need to take a look at several different factors before we can jump to that conclusion. And of course, one big factor is the wind shear forecast. And for the forecast for the month of August, there is also some good news, because look at the main developed region again, where for the most part the wind shear is between the mid levels and the upper levels of the atmosphere is expected to be a little bit stronger than average, while the Western Atlantic, the wind shear is expected to be a little bit weaker than average. So that's suddenly good news that the main developed region is experiencing a little bit more wind shear than usual, because that would definitely disorganize tropical waves enough to prevent them from really strengthening into tropical depression or tropical storm to eventually potentially develop into a hurricane. So the fact that the upper level winds are a little bit stronger than normal right around the main developed region is certainly good news, and I think it will prevent more tropical cyclones for the month of August this year. So that's certainly some good news, but we still need to pay close attention to the Western Atlantic since the wind shear is a little bit weaker than average, and this includes the Gulf of Mexico as well, where a lot of tropical cyclones originate from. So it's definitely something to at least be aware of around the United States, since the upper level winds are expected to be a little bit lighter than normal. So it's definitely concerning, but overall it seems like we're in for a more quiet August as a result of the stronger wind shear, the higher amount of stability right around the main developed region, and the cooler than average sea surface temperatures right around the main developed region. So that's something to keep in mind. But another thing we're going to need to pay attention to is the El Nino forecasts for the month of August. And of course, as of right now, the sea surface temperatures right around the equatorial Pacific in the Nino 3.4 region are cooler than average. So it's pretty much inevitable at this point we're going to be in a La Nina for the month of August, which would promote a more active than usual hurricane season, which is definitely concerning. But if the other factors, such as the stronger than normal upper level winds as well as the cooler than average sea surface temperatures are able to really affect the hurricane season, then we could potentially still see a quiet August, despite the fact that we're in a La Nina. But we can't underestimate a La Nina August either, because of course that does promote a lot less stability right around the Atlantic for a higher probability of tropical cyclones to form. Here's the forecast, and you see as of July 14th, most likely scenario at this point is that during the month of August we are going to be in a La Nina. So I think that should promote a little bit less stability right around the Atlantic. But the good news is that the other factors could outweigh the fact that we're in a La Nina. And another factor that also could make this August a little bit more quiet when it comes to tropical cyclone development is the Mjo pattern, where we do see that we're in a positive phase we're expected to be in a positive phase over the next 2 weeks, and this includes a large portion of the main development region, which is certainly good news because during a positive Mjo pattern, then that represents a less favorable state for tropical cyclone genesis, which definitely would make it a more quiet August if a positive Mjo pattern were to dominate the main development region, despite the fact that we're in a La Nina. So I think this is great news, and I think it's more likely we're going to be in a more quiet August than you typically experience. But again, don't underestimate the hurricane season just because of that, because it could become active very quickly by the time we approach the month of September. So another thing we're gonna need to pay close attention to is the Arctic Oscillation Index, which to make a long story short, if you're in a positive Arctic Oscillation Index, then that means the westerly winds are further northward, which would promote a little bit more tropical cyclone development because the wind shear will be lighter. But if you're in a negative Arctic Oscillation, then you're more likely to see a more quiet August, since the jet stream would dip a lot more thanks to a weaker westerly flow associated with a weaker ridge and a weaker low pressure system in the northern Atlantic. So as of right now, we're in a little bit of a positive Arctic Oscillation, which means that there's a little bit that it's more likely we're going to see less jet stream dips, but you see we're pretty much close to zero at this point, and it's expected to stay that way over the next 2 weeks. So in general, I don't think it's going to play a major role in terms of how active this August will be, but it's at least something to definitely be aware of going into the month of August. So another thing that I want to show you guys is short-term forecast, and you see the GFS model over the next 2 weeks is very quiet when it comes to tropical cyclone development. The main development region is completely dead, with no real tropical wave having any sort of possibility of developing. The only area where there might be that slight possibility a tropical storm could form is right around the southwestern Caribbean, where there is a lot of convection going on as a result of a gyre, but we do see more tropical cyclones move towards the eastern Pacific rather than develop in the southwestern Caribbean, which is so at this point it seems like it seems like it's going to be quiet for the next 2 weeks for the over the Atlantic, based on what the short-term forecast models are stating. So overall, I do think it's going to be a more quiet August than usual, thankfully, but we still need to pay close attention to the western part of the Atlantic because the sea surface temperatures are warmer than average, and that's where the wind shear and the precipitation will be a little bit above average and below average when it comes to wind shear. So we could see more tropical cyclones develop closer to the United States, but with a weaker than expected main development region for the month of August. And I think in general this August at least should be quieter than what you typically experience. Of course, that could change into September, but for the month of August, I think it should be very quiet, which is definitely great news. But remember, whether there's a quiet August or a more active August, just remember that all it takes is one storm to completely change people's lives and completely devastate a community. So don't underestimate a specific tropical cyclone just because it's in a quieter month, because we still could see a powerful tropical cyclone develop even during a quiet month like this. So just keep that in mind, and don't underestimate the hurricane season just because it might be quieter than you expect as of right now. But yeah, guys, I guess that's it for this video. I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content, and I hope you guys have a great day.